like I like to. So if I look like I'm kind of dancing, it's because I don't really like just standing in one spot talking. Anyways, okay, here we go. So this is a presentation on the third support circle. And we'll just get right into it because we don't want to take up too much time. So basically, when we're looking at the third support circle, like we went through all of the support circles the other day, so everyone should be quite familiar with what it is that we're talking about, the type of framework that we're talking about. So this is what we heard. So this is how we came up with an idea to have a third support circle. So in the first focus group, the first focus group session that we had, I know, it's only the middle of the second day too, we got one more day to go. The first focus group session in 2013, someone said we need a First Nation Ministry of Education. So this is where we began the conversation about having a third support circle. In the second focus group session in 2013, this was a comment, and these are comments taken right out of the notes from those focus group sessions. We've kept all of the notes, all of the sticky notes, all of the flip charts, just to make sure that we are moving from the spot that we started out in. So the second focus group session, it was reported that the third level services of the commission, and you can see that the name changed from a First Nation Ministry of Education to a commission. So this was through discussions with the focus group session. They didn't like the idea of calling it a First Nation Ministry of Education. Let's call it a commission. So the third level services of the commission should be clearly delineated from those of regional education authorities and First Nation schools. The commission should be clearly in place to support the education systems of First Nation governments. And then at the third focus group session that was held in 2013, the language changes once again from a commission to a collective education support organization. So as you can see, we're talking about a third support circle all the time, but the name is changing, that's all. So the language changes to a collective education support organization, and what was said was that we need a system which recognizes diversity under a collective system for First Nations. So then at the symposium that was held in 2013, these are excerpts from the notes from the symposium. Further develop the role of a collective entity. Now you can see that we're talking about a collective entity, and it's always talking about the same third support circle, just the name and the terminology changes as time progresses through the various meetings. So further develop the role of a collective entity to provide practical support to First Nation students and learning environments. It's hard for a strong collective unified voice to be ignored by other levels of government. So providing the rationale for having a third support circle. We should be championing a brand new model ourselves for others to follow. So this is really putting forth the idea that we need to do this in Ontario, not just for ourselves, but to be able to develop a model that others could also follow. So it's saying that we think we're going to be successful. So then what we heard in focus group sessions in 2014, we developed the vision for the First Nation education systems. As I went through the presentation yesterday and talked about, where we're at now and where we need to go. So, and then figuring out in between what are the steps that we need to be able to move from where we are now to where it is that we want to go. So we have the where we are now with the environmental scan, but we didn't really have where it is specifically that we want to go. So we did a visioning exercise with the focus groups in 2014, and this is what they came up with. And of course, everything is draft, as you know. It can change, nothing is set in stone, but this is what those focus groups came up with, and it's in your document too for review. We are self-determining Indigenous peoples united and obligated to assert our jurisdiction over education by transmitting our life ways to our peoples, as handed down by our ancestors and all of creation. Our lifelong learning system is derived from our customs, traditions, languages, homelands, knowledge systems, learning ways, and spirituality, which provide the necessary tools to nurture and reinforce a strong sense of self-identity, to achieve our personal and collective aspirations, and empower and support our communities and nations. So also in the focus groups from 2014, we had a lot of discussions around education systems and funding. Well, I mean, this was the whole purpose of it. So I wanted to put up these diagrams because in one of the focus group sessions, people got very artsy and wanted to kind of show everybody what it was that they were thinking about. And we had a lot of discussions around it too. So this is kind of one of the visions that came out of there for when we were talking about a third support circle. So you can see that the third support circle here, so there's child is at the center, and then we have certain areas of focus for the first support circle, the second support circle, and there's some areas of focus there, and then there's areas of focus for the third support circle. So it's really, you can see how we have evolved from what has occurred over the past little while. And there was connections here, you can see, to outside organizations, the Ministry of Education, Indian Affairs, the Ministry of Training Colleges and Universities. And this was another vision that came out of that particular focus group session. It's a little blurry, sorry about that, but there is the vision there, and then there's ideas of what the first, second, and third support entities should be focusing on. And here's another depiction of what came out of that focus group session. This one looks like a feather, and on one side of it is the third support circle, so a support organization, and then on this side here is the second support circle, and the stem going through the middle, or the middle of whether it's a feather or a leaf, I'm not really sure, but the First Nations are right in the middle supporting everything. So very interesting diagrams, but these are what have evolved over the course of our discussions. So then, to build on the focus group sessions and the symposium from 2013, we had a summit in 2014, and those of you that have been involved in this whole Charting Our Path Forward initiative all along the way will know that a lot of times we had to kind of morph the activities around the First Nation Education Act that was being proposed by the federal government. So at this particular summit in 2014, we were at the very height of trying to reject the First Nation control of First Nation Education Act. So when we had this Gateway to Freedom Summit it was actually here in this room in 2014, this is part of the statement that came out of that particular meeting. And the statement was a First Nations proposal for First Nations education, and part of that was that we wholeheartedly rejected the First Nation control of First Nation Education Act. But this statement was developed by the educators and leaderships at that summit in May of 2014, And part of it is we are committed to continuing to build our education systems to serve our peoples and to being fully accountable to our peoples in the governance and operations of those education systems. Then what we did in 2014, out of the Education Summit, came a suggestion that from the education officers, and yesterday I believe I explained what education officers are. They're the education managers and directors at the community and the tribal council level. The education officers that attended that summit sat together after one of the after the day of meetings, and really brought forward some recommendations to be followed up. And they brought them forward the next day to the delegates that were at that particular gathering. And part of what they were asking was they wanted to be able to develop some form of a networking system for education directors and managers in Ontario. So what we did was to be able to explore what that would look like. We held 2 education officer gatherings in the summer of 2014 to try and determine what that might look like going forward. So out of the from the education officer gatherings that we held, this was one of the statements that came out of it. The accountability model is of paramount importance. Issues regarding jurisdiction and funding will be mitigated by a strong accountability commitment. So this is where we get that strong sense of accountability that has to be permeated into all of the support circles that as their roles and responsibilities are fleshed out. So that's how we come to where we are today, with all of that input that was gathered along the way. And we have the Charting Our Own Path Forward 2015 document, evergreen document, as I talked about before, embraces the spirit of unity, vision, and organic evolution moving forward. It synthesizes the collective input to date and provides options and ideas on sorry, I'm way behind here, aren't I? Somebody needs to raise their hand and tell me that I'm not flipping the slides. Or are you sleeping? So the ideas and options on systems and funding utilizing the support circles framework. So this is the support circles framework that we went through yesterday. No, it's not. There it is. Support circles framework with the First Nation learner in the center and the 3 support circles, which we've been discussing all along. They're all connected to support the needs of First Nation students and learners, and connected to outside government systems and organizations and agencies. So this is what we're talking about right now, is this 3rd support circle, the highlighted one there. Again, once again, this is the current reality that we're working within, so people can see that you know, when you're thinking about the 3rd support circle specifically, do we see a 3rd support circle there right now? I would say that the Chiefs of Ontario might serve some kind of coordination capacity, but it's very minimal compared to what needs to happen, right? There is no real coordinating body that's able to, you know, well, I guess what's missing is missing the system. You're missing the, you know, all of those circles that are supporting everything to be able to bring everything together in the 3rd support circle. So you'll see in the handouts in that document, the Charting Our Own Path Forward 2015. You'll see that there is discussion starters. So these are models. There's one based on and I'll go through these very quickly. There's one based on geographical proximity. And so, you know, when you have a look at these a little more closely, you can see that basically, I mean, this was something that came out of the sessions that we had. You know, somebody would say, I think that we should create a system based on geography, rather than, because that's what makes sense, right? The advantages of doing that are that everyone is close together, they can get together easily to talk to one another, you know, all their communities are right there. So there's various advantages and disadvantages, and many of those are pointed out in the document as well. You know, and then there's also the idea, like, you know, it's not that just we heard it from one person and created a diagram. Lots of times we heard the fact that, why don't we create a treaty-based system? We're treaty-based, we have treaties. Treaties, education is recognized in our treaties. Why don't we create our system based on our treaties? So that's what this one has a look at, is what if we organized around the 9 treaty regions in Ontario. And certainly we would still have, you know, the 133 First Nations as the first support circle, but then the treaty region would be able to determine, you know, what do we need here in the second support circle? Is it just the treaty region, or do they have support entities that they want to develop? All of those kind of things. And then, you know, and then there's the third support circle. Also, an idea was the tribal council focus. So let's just use the tribal councils that we currently have and then build on that. So in that idea, there's the 17 tribal councils that are all included, and we would just grow from there. These lines, these thick lines around the support circles are the areas where there would be policies developed, policies that ensure the interaction and exchange of information and data collection, things like that, information sharing. The next one is a PTO-based model, and this one really has just basically works from the fact that we are organized, this is the way we're organized right now, so why don't we just move from there? Anishinaabe Nation and the Union of Ontario Indians are already in self-government and negotiations, so this would align with what they are currently doing. The next one is a nation-based, because we hear our leadership talk all the time about revitalizing our nations, nation building, nation rebuilding, all kinds of terminology about nationhood. So do we want to build an education system based on the larger nations, the Anishinaabe, the Mishkegwak, and the Okwehonwe nations of peoples? And then, like I talked about yesterday, there's also a blended or combination system where we could, if we had different ideas about how we wanted to organize, then we could utilize all of those various ideas in a blended system where we have maybe a PTO that wants to organize along PTO lines, or say it's one of the governance tables. So let's just say it's the Union of Ontario Indians right now with their Anishinaabe education system. So their system kind of sits all of their 3 levels, because they do have 3 levels in their education system that they've developed. All of those 3 levels sit in here, but they interact with the other and connect up with the other First Nations in Ontario. And then we have, you know, possibly there's a number of communities, say there's 20 communities that want to organize themselves based on geographic proximity. So they would determine what their support entities might be. You know, maybe they're using existing tribal councils, who knows. But it's all kind of up to however it is that we want to organize, right? We have one treaty-based organization. So say Grand Council Treaty 3 wanted to be part of the overall system as a treaty-based system. So they have this whole piece of the pie here to insert their system into the system. And that's a lot of system, isn't it? To insert their system into the framework, I guess is probably a better way to put it. So they might have some support entities here. Maybe they use existing tribal councils. Maybe they develop something else. But the key is that they're going to connect up with all of the other systems within Ontario. They'll be connecting up at the second level with the geographic proximity system, which will be connecting up with the Anishinaabe education system. That's how it's envisioned as working. And then, maybe there's another segment of Ontario that just really wants to build on what the tribal councils that are currently in existence. We heard what some of the tribal councils are doing in Ontario, and certainly some of them are very advanced in establishing some of the elements of a First Nation education system. So that's really what the blended system is all about. So now we're going to go into discussion and input again. In this time, we really want to talk about that third support circle. So we're going to, these are kind of what we're going to be looking at in the discussion circles and the discussion and input sessions this time. But it's an interesting exercise where you're going to actually get to do some drawing. We have all kinds of colored markers and pens, and we're going to provide you with blank support circles. And so that you can actually put your own ideas onto the pieces of paper to say how you think the system might best work. So, any questions before we move into the input discussion and input session? Crazy confused or so crystal clear? Hard to say. All right, awesome. Everybody wants to just chat and draw. Beautiful. Okay, well, we'll take the next little while to do that. Pardon? Yeah, well, I think, are you still in your tables, or do you need to get back to your tables? If you need to get back to your tables, please. Yeah, same facilitators, same note takers from the last one, because I don't think anybody's run off that quickly, have they? I also wanted to mention that our communications team at the Chiefs of Ontario is actually developing a video that's going to capture some of the essence of the symposium. If you're interested in being captured on video, just saying what you have to say about the symposium, please do stop in the hall out there where you see the camera set up, and Eva will just take like 30 seconds of your time to kind of capture what you think the essence of the symposium is. Okay, thank you.